Tuesday, the 26th of December, 7 o'clock. It is, in fact, we're about 4 hours after the full moon. Did not expect to go out tonight. I'm just doing this as an experiment. There's also high, thin clouds, but there are patches of clarity overhead. The plan is just to sample a few studies to get a sense of what kind of effect the full moon, having already experimented with a 3-day moon and an 11-day moon, is going to have on deep sky imaging. It's a little later than I expected to start, and the main reason is because the sky was just overcast with clouds earlier, but there's a nice patch up towards the center of the sky with Jupiter in it. So let's see what we can turn up this evening. Just so happens that NGC400-449, I think it's the 8th brightest galaxy visible from Earth, it is just post-culminatory right now at the time of a full moon, maybe 7:05, 7:10 in the evening. We're going to give it a chance. I initiated the camera record straight away as soon as the first stars popped up, so we can get a sense of how it's going to formulate on the screen. After we have at least a minute-long view of 253, the plan is to go to 891, which will be more to the east. We are now equatorially flipped with this, the counterweights of the scope to the west and the OTA towards the east. I am getting a rather extensive view of NGC400-449 despite the full moon. I have played with the Handycam settings a little bit to darken the screen. I'm going to stick with color mode primarily because there are issues with the fact that I've already covered the NGC series primarily in color mode. You can see some cloudification right here. That's because there are some high thin clouds moving into the south, and we did just manage to capture a bit of the galaxy earlier on before the clouds started encroaching. So let's flip her over to NGC891. Okay, NGC891 is just, the scope is just slightly being obstructed by the roof tri, and the moon is reflecting quite a bit off the west-facing roof tri, so there could be some encroaching reflected luminosity from the moon, but I'm blown away. I'm seeing the dark band cutting across this beautiful edge-on galaxy. As you can see on the screen, and it looks like now we are getting some cloud encroachment. So I may have to leave off on this. But frankly, the view right now seems to be better than it was on the 11-day moon. And it's probably due to the fact that I did make some adjustments to the screen, and the moon was closer, even though it was a less bright moon. Now I'm noticing a trail of a jet and going across the sky, and I think that accounted for some of the vague nebulosity that occurred right here, because when I follow the tail back from the jet, it crosses right in the direction of 891. I'm going to center up, and then we're going to have a look at some of the 350 brighter series and galaxies, especially actually I want to have a look at some of the 15th magnitude galaxies that we barely detected the other evening, especially if they're far north Pisces. So let me go ahead and synchronize to 891, and then we're going to do a little review of the 350-399 series. But I will tell you, I am looking at the screen and I am seeing the bisecting dark lane across the core of NGC891. Okay, NGC 400 through 402 were all stars, which comprise about 20 to 23%, 25% of the NGC catalog because they were misperceived, logged, and added to Dreyer's catalog in the towards the 1890s. This galaxy here is quite interesting. It's magnitude 12.5. It is 1.8 by 0.6 arc minutes, so it's supra edge on. It's definitely giving a good view. It's in a wonderful part of the screen, which bodes well for the rest of the evening. Galaxy is 12.5 magnitude, spiral with a lowercase a, 229 million light years distant, puts it at about maybe 130,000 light years in diameter. We are at plus 32 and almost 33 degrees declination. Not a bad view for a full moon and damp skies. Okay, we know what this galaxy is. We've seen it before. It's NGC 404. It's a galaxy in Andromeda. It's very close to that bright star, which I don't remember the name of, but I'll let you know in the comments. It's magnitude 10.3, 4.3 by 3.9, excuse me, arc minutes in size. It is an elliptical galaxy class O, 10.1 million light years distant, so just outside the local group of galaxies. We are at plus 35, almost 36 degrees in declination, and that's our first galactic view for the evening. And you know, that's not bad on a full moon night. Okay, NGC 407 is another galaxy in Pisces in this case. Brighter, magnitude 13.4, more edgy on, 1.8 by 0.4 arc minutes, spiral with a lowercase a, some 253 million light years distant. We're at plus 33 and change degrees in declination. The galaxy is quite present right there. We'd probably be seeing a good deal more of it if we didn't have the full moon illuminating the water vapor in the atmosphere. Now you realize, of course, if you were out in space, the full moon wouldn't be an issue at all because you just have to avoid looking at it. But here, where we have the Earth's atmosphere to scatter all of its light, it is really dreadful for amateur astronomers, particularly when you're at the eyepiece and your eyes are being slightly overwhelmed by the moon itself, which reduces your optical sensitivity. So not only the effect of the atmosphere, plus the effect of the light of the moon on your eye seriously impedes your ability to see these kinds of faint fuzzies. Okay, NGC 407 had a close by neighbor, 408. It's a galaxy in Pisces, 0.5 by 0.3 arc minute elliptical galaxy, 234 million light years distant, which makes it fairly small. So probably somewhere around 30,000 light years in diameter. It's at plus 33 degrees and change in declination. There is a very brightish galaxy right there. It's not where I expect to see it, however, but it is. There is no magnitudinal data on this galaxy, so I'll have to look it up. I would be looking more in this region here for a faint galaxy. Well, this is NGC 410, and that was that brightish galaxy right there. It's now centered appropriately on the screen. NGC 410 is a galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 11.5, 2.3 by 1.8 arc minutes, spiral with a bar, lenticular class, 242 million light years distant, plus 33 degrees and change. You know, it's pretty present on the screen. I'm also liking the fact that this 400 to 449 series is skipping over some of the deep south and anomalous studies in the NGC catalog. I may just be able to pull this off without the battery running out on the Handycam on such a cold night. Okay, while this galaxy isn't revealed on the screen because it's magnitude 62.3, I want to point out that I lost access to Golden Phoenix Publish for about 2 weeks. I did some research and then I started poking around on my other site, which is called Polymath A, and I found a way to somehow bridge back to Golden Phoenix Publish. Apparently they made some kind of change in accessing your studio, which prevented me from being able to access Golden Phoenix Publish and putting up videos. I have been stocking them up a little bit. I will be posting them up. What we're looking for here is NGC 412, galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 16.3, 0.7 by 0.3 arc minutes. This is probably anomalous. It's a spiral that's 33 6,390,000,000 light years distant. The last time I saw a value like that, I looked it up online. It only had a redshift of about 0.5, which indicated it was maybe 600 million light years distant. So this may be a misentry either in the catalog or in the database associated with Gemini 2. So I don't expect to see anything of a galaxy that's magnitude 16.3 on a full moon night at minus 20 degrees in declination. Nor do I expect to see NGC413 galaxy in Cetus. It's further north, it's at minus 2 degrees, almost 3, but it's also magnitude 16 in this case, 1.2 by 0.7 arc minutes, spiral with a lowercase c, 260 million light years distant. Like I said, I do not expect to see this particular galaxy on a full moon night with obvious atmospheric water. However, the sky does seem to be clearing a little bit of actual obvious clouds, so that's impressive. So I would ordinarily be able to image the cores of galaxies down to magnitude 16.5, especially directly overhead, but let's not expect to see much of anything on this screen here and now under these conditions. Okay, we've now poked the scope almost virtually overhead to NGC414, a galaxy in Pisces. This one should be viewable. Magnitude 14.5, 0.7 by 0.4 arc minutes, lenticular spiral class O, 218 million light years plus 33 degrees, and there is a galaxy formulating right there. And you know, that looks quite bright. As bright as that galaxy looks, if indeed that is NGC414, and it should be because the scope's been doing some excellent go-to work lately, I would expect us to be able to reveal at least galaxies to 15.5 overhead, so I'm impressed. Of course, there's other galaxies in the field we would expect to see so. Pisces and Cetus are particularly rich in galactic fields. Going pretty far south again, as you can tell by looking at the screen. NGC417, the galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 14.1, 0.6 by 0.5 arc minutes. We're at minus 18 degrees. I would expect to lose maybe 2 magnitudes anyway on this one. Not much hope that we're going to see it under these conditions. And the reason we expect to see 2 magnitude loss is just how deep south it is. Then add on top of that another 1.5 magnitude. It would be unrealistic to expect to see this 14.1 magnitude galaxy, despite its smallish size, 0.6 by 0.5. It's a spiral lenticular class with a bar, however, and 565 million light years distant, puts it at about 80,000 light years in diameter. This is our first drop into Sculptor. There have been a couple other galaxies in Sculptor I've avoided because they were below minus 35 degrees declination. This is NGC418, galaxy Sculptor, brightish, magnitude 12.6, 2 by 1.7 arc minute, spiral with the bar, lowercase c, 253 million light years distant. We are at minus 30 and change in declination. Very little hope of seeing this particular galaxy despite its brightness at magnitude 12.6. No trouble seeing NGC420, however. It's a galaxy in Pisces, brightish, magnitude 12.1, 2 by 2 arc minutes, face-on, lenticular spiral, 227 million light years distant. It's at plus 32 and change. And you know, we're compared to the 11-day moon, just because the moon seems to be farther away, we do seem to be seeing a little more hints. And I'll have to run some comparos on those screenshots from the 350 to 399 series. We do seem to be getting a little more presence in this series of galaxies of roughly the same magnitude and same part of the sky. As I mentioned, largely because the moon is more distant. Back down into Sculptor. This one's at minus 29 and change degrees declination. For NGC423, 13.4 magnitude galaxy, suboblate, 1 by 0.4 arc minutes, spiral with a lowercase a. It's a mere 72 million light years distant. That puts it at about 25 to 30,000 light years in diameter. Not a biggie. It's a dwarfish galaxy. As I said, magnitude 13.4, suboblate, and I doubt we're getting much of a view of it simply due to the fact that I can see so much luminosity being reflected off the cold water vapor to the deep south. All right, about halfway through the evening studies, NGC425, galaxy in Andromeda, plus almost 39 degrees. The scope is looking just a little past the zenith to the west. There's no obstruction of the aperture. This NGC425 is a magnitude 12.6, 1 by 1 arc-minute spiral with a lowercase p, which means peculiarities. 289 million light years distant. It's at almost 39 degrees in declination. This is a pure study in a average surface brightness galaxy, which is equivalent to its own magnitude of 12.6. You can see it up there next to a star. Doesn't look quite as bright as I might expect it. Sorry if I just shifted my weight and disturbed the view, but let's go ahead and move on. NGC426 is a galaxy in Cetus, but this one's pretty much straight on the celestial equator. It's also quite bright at magnitude 12.9, 1.4 by 1 arc-minute elliptical. 236 million light years distant. That's pretty large for an elliptical, about 100,000 light years across. They're usually more compressed. Gravity's taken over, turned out a lot of stars, roped everything in and drawn it towards the core. 100,000 light years in diameter is impressive. We're at minus 17 minutes and 25 seconds, and right ascension 1 hour 12 minutes 48 seconds. There's our view. Another futile effort, deep south in Sculptor. It's at minus 32 degrees. NGC427 galaxy, magnitude 14.1, would be right on the limit on even a decent night at this far south declination. It's 1 by 0.6 arc-minutes, spiral with a bar and a ring, 447 million light years distant. So at least we have some data on it for you folks that have observed further south with, let's say, a 24-inch telescope. You might look for that ring using averted vision, of course. Heading back north again, but only to the celestial equator, about a degree above it. In Cetus is NGC428 galaxy, brightish, magnitude 11.5, 4 by 2.9 arc-minutes. This one, it would be worth some time viewing, although I am not seeing much of it. It's pretty, I can see it right in the middle of the screen. It's faintly diffuse. As I mentioned, the galaxy is 11.5, but it's spread out 4 by 2.9 arc-minutes, which means it's probably got another 3 magnitudes added in terms of average surface brightness. So we're talking something like 14.5. The galaxy is 53 million light years distant, which accounts for its brightness and its size, and we are at almost 1 degrees in declination. Intrinsically, this galaxy is probably only about 70,000 light years in diameter. NGC428 had a neighbor. This is NGC429, a galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 13.4, smaller, 1.4 by 0.3 arc-minutes, supra-Aegean lenticular spiral class O, 252 million light years distant, puts it at about 110,000 light years across. We are at minus 20 minutes and 44 seconds of declination, so the last galaxy probably will not appear on the screen, although several seem to be present. Well, the other galaxies on the screen, one of which may have been NGC430, a galaxy in Cetus. I barely heard a click of the stepper motors of the drive. It's magnitude 12.5, 1.3 by 1.1 arc-minute size elliptical, 237 million light years distance, so a fairly large for elliptical, probably around 75,000 light years in diameter. It's at minus 15 minutes and 9 seconds. We have progressed to 1 hour, 12 minutes and 59 seconds in right ascension. The galaxy is right where we expect to see it in the middle of the screen. Because of the moon, I've run the screen brightness down to 17 from 22. I did that, went from 28 to 22 with the 11-day moon. Now I've dropped it down to 17. It looks a little overpowering otherwise. I'm hoping we don't lose the ability to see deep sky studies. This one is NGC431. I have to get you data on it. It's further north. NGC431 is a galaxy in Andromeda, magnitude 12.9, 1.4 by 0.9 arc minutes, sub-football, super oblately presented spiral with a bar of the lenticular class, 273 million light years distant. We're almost at 34 degrees in declination. I don't think we've suffered at all by running the brightness down. I may do it once again. NGC435 is a galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 14.2. This one could be right on the limits. I think I'm seeing something faint and fuzzy there. It's 1.1 by 0.4 arc minutes. It's a spiral with a lowercase c and d. 459 million light years distant, puts it about the size of SCA-31 at 150,000 light years. It's at +2 degrees. I expect that we should be able to make this one out. Are we seeing it yet? It looks a little further up because we've gone more towards the south. I did drop the brightness again down to 12. I think I'll go down to 10 just because it's a nice number. Alright, well I probably just shifted the scope, so I better give it a chance to formulate this galaxy. NGC437, galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 12.8, 1.3 by 1 arc minute, spiral with a lowercase a, 238 million light years distant. We're at almost 6 degrees in declination. Did we get a view of it yet? Yeah, I'm seeing it. Not particularly spectacular. 12.8 magnitude, and it looks like it might have a couple of neighbors. Alright, deep south once again into Sculptor, NGC439 galaxy. This one's a brighter galaxy, magnitude 11.5. Be interesting. 2.5 by 1.5 arc minute. It's an elliptical of the spiral class, elliptical of class 3. 257 million light years distant means this is a biggie. So it's probably of almost 160 to 170,000 light years in diameter. We're at minus 31, 44, 50. Hour 1, 13, 47. Maybe, just maybe, we'll get a look, but boy, there's an awful lot of atmospheric water down there that's being revealed by this full moon of Tuesday. I think it's the 26th of December. Here we have another number from my past, NGC441. Any of you motorcyclists out there would know what I'm referring to. Galaxy in Sculptor at almost 32 degrees. It's magnitude 12.7, 1.4 by 1.1 arc minute, spiral with a bar, lenticular. So it's at 250 million light years distant. It's probably about 100,000 light years in diameter, maybe a little larger than our own Milky Way, which I recently discovered some new data on, 87,000, not 100,000 light years across. But it was also revealed that our own galaxy is more massive, smaller and more massive than M31. So in the eventual mating of these 2.5 million light year separated galaxies, which dominate the local group, the tug is going to end up being preferred by the Milky Way. So it'll be a very spectacular merging. Well, I now have 2 bars left on the Handycam battery. As we look at NGC442, a galaxy in Cetus, minus 1 degree, so right up there at the celestial equator. Pure oblately presented 1 by 0.5 arc minute, 13.4 magnitude spiral with a lowercase a, 252 million light years distant, and based on our new data about the size of the Milky Way, roughly of the same size, maybe 90,000 light years across. As mentioned, we're now at minus 1 degrees in declination. Okay, we headed further north now to NGC443, galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 13.8 by 0.7 football-shaped spiral, no other attributions, 221 million light years distant. It's at plus 33 degrees. This galaxy's probably about 70,000 light years across. Okay, NGC444 is another galaxy in Pisces, but kind of away from the last one. It's a magnitude 14.3, but it's got a nice aspect ratio, 1.9 to 0.4. Spiral with a lowercase c and a d, 220 million light years distant, puts it at about 125,000 light years across. We are at plus 31 degrees in declination. I would expect this galaxy to be quite visible on the screen. We should be able to capture everything up to about magnitude 15 this evening, even with the full moon. Here we hope to see NGC445, a galaxy in Cetus. Interesting test. It's magnitude 14.1, and if we can see magnitude 15 at plus 30 and so degrees, I would love to be able to pick out a magnitude 14.1 galaxy that is near the celestial equator. It's 0.8 by 0.7 arc minutes across, the spiral of the lenticular class, and 512 million light years distant, which gives it a redshift of about 0.04. I am seeing two things near the screen. There's a brighter galaxy there and a fainter one below it. I think we can mark NGC445 as image despite the full moon. All right, this one should be right on the limits. I wouldn't expect to be able to vision it because it's too close to the celestial equator. It's NGC446, galaxy in Pisces, 15.5 magnitude and large, 2 by 1.6 arc minutes, which means we're probably somewhere around average surface brightness of 16.5. Spiral with a bar, lenticular class, 240 million light years distant, puts it up next to Messier 31 in size. We're at plus 4 and change in terms of declination. No expectations here. Okay, NGC447's further north, galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 14, but a pure face on 2.2 by 2.2 arc minutes, which means it's probably magnitude 15.5 in terms of average surface brightness. It's a spiral with a bar, lenticular class, and an A attribute. 255 million light years distant. We're at plus 33 degrees, and we are closing on the last studies of the evening. I'm hoping before the battery runs out that we have another look at NGC253 and 891. NGC44A is a galaxy in Cetus, but pretty close to the celestial equator at minus 1.5 degrees. Brightish, magnitude 12.1, a pure oblately presented 1.6 by 0.8 arc minute aspected spiral of the lenticular class, 93 million light years distant, puts this baby at about 50,000 light years in diameter. As mentioned, we are at minus 1.5 degrees in declination, so we should be able to pick it out, and yes, indeed, I do see it right there on the screen. Westering from overhead is NGC449, a galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 14.2, smallish, 0.8 by 0.5 arc minute, spiral with a lowercase b. 218 million light years distant means this baby's about 65,000 light years in diameter. We are at plus 33 degrees, and this is our last study of the evening. And let's go and have a look at, while we're this far north, at 891 and see if we can make out that beautiful dark lane, bisecting that absolutely well-presented spiral galaxy, NGC 891. All right, the scope is pointed virtually right up at the zenith. And that's because NGC 891 is at 42 degrees, 20 arc minutes and 53 seconds. And I'm at a latitude of about 44 degrees and 30 seconds. So we're a couple degrees shy of a galaxy that would pass directly overhead on a yearly basis. Actually, in a nightly, daily basis. NGC 891, as we already know, is a galaxy in Andromeda, magnitude 9.9, 13.1 by 2.8 arc minutes. It is the standard for a purely edge-on galaxy, 29 million light years distant. And I am seeing it on the screen, although the lane is not as present as it was when we began this evening. Although I'm shifting my weight around, I can see that's affecting the stars. So give it a few more minutes. We're not going to call this Carpe Noctem, necessarily. Oh, I'm starting to see the bar from looking at the screen at an obtuse angle. I'm hoping we're also seeing it on the camera. I'm going to give it a chance. Oh, the extension's not bad either. So, it is a beautiful field of stars around it if I could only get them to be tinier. That's the one virtue of looking through an actual telescope at the eyepiece. The star fields are stunning. The stars are beautiful. Brighter ones have a slight ring around them due to diffraction patterns. Oh, I'm starting to see the lane now. However, you have to look with severe averted vision at times to bring out something to be able to detect galaxies. In a 12-inch scope, if it were a perfectly good night, I would expect to be able to see galaxies to magnitude 12 because their cores are magnitude 12.8, and on a really good night, a 6-inch scope should be able to reveal magnitude 13.5 stars overhead when stars to magnitude 5.5 are visible to the naked eye. You know, that's not a bad view. Let's have that look at NGC400-449 before we carpe noctem. Well, NGC400-449 is well past culminating. It's probably no more than 15 degrees above the horizon. I'm seeing the galaxy form on the screen. I can see the core and I can see extensions. I suspect you are getting a view. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run the brightness of the screen down to 0 and see if that has much of an effect on view. Let's see what happens to it. Now we're going to have to give it a moment for... I just disturbed the image. So the CCD imager right now is grabbing photons, it's figuring out where the brightest locations are, probably those stars, and it's doing all kinds of geometric analysis to be able to assign photons to the right, to reorganize the image in memory so the maximum amount of light is attributed to the right regions of the screen. This is presumably how I would expect a CCD imager to work. I do have a background in electronics. However, most of my training came about before semiconductor chips were the norm. Mostly it was discrete components back in the day. But I do some programming and I do have a general idea of how these things work. The view I'm getting, except for the brightness of the screen, I am seeing extensions of the galaxy. In general, I would say we got better views on the full moon because it was further to the east than I did on the 11-day moon because it was progressed further in the sky and it was casting more brightness. I cannot account for sky conditions, however, so there are variables there. I am seeing some discrete clouds in the sky. The sky is nothing like what you would achieve at sky dark. It's more like about a half an hour to 45 minutes after sunset. That's how I would characterize it. And having said all of this, and being thankful that Golden Phoenix Publish has been reestablished to me, I do not know what happened to it for the last 2 weeks. All these videos will once again, plus the music I do, will be posted up on Golden Phoenix Publish. Carpe Noctem.